right. So smooth.
Just worked out to do the countdown voice. That's good. It's quite similar, isn't it? Very similar. Do you have just the right amount of water in the glass? I think it's the note, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. So this is, I guess, chapter 3 of our Notion Devotion Brighton Deep Dives. And this was voted amongst those who voted last month. And I think it's got 3 out of the 6 who voted. All about to do or not to do. Harnessing your second brain to get things done. We're going to explore why to-do lists are the key to completing complex projects. Yeah, it might sound a little bit obvious, but this is why we have project management, because it's no longer just a matter of must buy milk, must buy groceries. Our lives become more and more complex, especially with the amount of automation that's going into our working lives now. It's so much more of our time or so much less of our time is the drudgery, yeah, and the work which is the ball ache work, and more of our time is spent actually managing the overview and managing the decision-making points. And so really great project management is something which is now becoming central to most of our working lives. So we're going to explore why to-do lists or something beyond to-do lists are great for completing complex projects, why sometimes they fail, and then how you can employ your own productivity solutions to become productivity superstars or superheroes or masters, shall we say. Great. So, to do or not to do, this is AI today, isn't it, really? Because it's almost like a perfect, well, not that any of us have seen Shakespeare as he lived, but you can kind of go, yeah, I guess Shakespeare probably looks something similar to that. So perfect. But then we look at the piece of paper that he's holding, and you just realize, no, it's just not quite there yet. Because not only does he have finish Hamlet as his last unfinished point, but we've got to-do list, to-list, do list, to-list, do list. Why has it done that? We do not know. And I think most intriguing is just this first point on the list, just the number 5. I mean, okay, so biggest brain in the world, but still doesn't quite know how to formulate a convincing to-do list. But hey, that's where we are. That is AI early 2025. AI late 2025, of course, is going to kill us all. So just to set expectations there as well. So by the end of this less than 30-minute deep dive, watching the clock, Cameron, thank you, you're going to be inspired to make your second brain do the heavy lifting so you don't have to. That is the point of this. So let's go back to our earliest second brains. Look at that, our ancestors. So before apps, before post-it notes, before paper, before Sumerian clay tablets, which we covered in our deep dive number 1, there were cave paintings. And this is from the, I'm going to mispronounce this, Lacroix cave in France in the Dordogne region. And these paintings were made between 17 and 22,000 years ago, which is, I like to sort of mark things by the length of my lifetime. So that's about 400 of my lifetimes ago, which is kind of crazy. Some of the earliest examples of human beings offloading what was in their minds for posterity. Yeah, not that they understood what posterity meant at that time, but they were offloading visions that they had, mostly of hunting, of the game that they were going to kill, and sticking it on cave walls. And I don't know if anybody's seen Werner Herzog's Cave of Dreams? No? Oh, documentary like to die for. It's got Werner Herzog talking for 2 hours, which is always a total delight. But he's...
when you took the boat over the hill?
That's the director, yeah, no, but this is just him literally talking about cave paintings. And no, it's super stunning. So we'll put that in the follow-up email. Everybody go and watch this Werner Herzog film. So what our ancestors were trying to do here is, and it's interesting because it seems as though the paintings were painted over and they were renewed, so it's not as though even it was one artist, as it were, one early artist, but they would sort of remake and paint on top of, and but clearly we're left with these hyper well preserved insights into what our 400 lifetime ago ancestors were dreaming about. And they were super beautiful. But these were maybe the earliest examples of offloading the contents of our brains. So then we're going to leap forward to the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians. About 5,000 years ago, those cave paintings had evolved into written word. And actually, the funny thing is, the number of times when you see hieroglyphics, and you'll never not see this again. The next time you see Egyptian hieroglyphics, look for the lines. There's the lines, and you have the hieroglyphics, and the Egyptians were masters at keeping their alphabets inside the lines. Just look at this. No touching, no going over. They were complete line freaks. So that's good, because they built pyramids, and they involved a lot of lines as well. So they had highly structured alphabets. And I'm not going to go into the Rosetta Stone, because that could be an extra 10 minutes on our talk, so there's no time for that tonight. But clearly, we're moving forward from cave paintings to downloading our minds to the written word. Now, here we are in the Middle Ages. Would anybody like to hazard a guess, up to about 500 years ago, what percentage of the population were literate 500 years ago in the UK?
1%?
Come on, Andy.
10%?
10%. 10%, yeah, around 10%. And that's 10% of men, because women were pretty much illiterate, And we can argue about the unfairness of that, and I think everybody in this room would agree, because this is Brighton after all, that was a totally unfair setup, but that was the way of the world. So here we have a monk in the Middle Ages. He's making his own to-do lists. Has to do with a lot of prayer, a lot of self-flagellation, and a lot of Hail Marys. So that was where we were up to about 500 years ago, where our second brains were all hand-crafted notes and text. Now, here we go, another AI creation. So what happened then with the advent of the printing press? 1450. This freaked out a lot of monks, because suddenly they were no longer the monopolists over the written word. And you could mass create pages. And clearly this was very much the internet of the 15th century. The printing press, and started with the Gutenberg Bible, one of the first mass-printed books. So lots of monks out of work suddenly, or just more time for self-flagellation. We'll never know. Cameron's guessing it was more time for self-flagellation, but that's one of your kinks as well, I believe. Yeah. So what happened was suddenly we could mass produce, and so our second brains had the opportunity, or rather the second brains of the people who owns the information were able to be produced and distributed wildly. So we are now, 500 years after that, living in a world where, and this is a great stat, apparently every 2 days, humanity creates and offloads from our brains into our digital worlds as much information as humanity had created from the dawn of history, from those caves in Le Croix in the Dordogne in France, up until 2003. We create every 2 days as much information as everything pre-2003. So that is just terrifying, because what it means is that we don't have anything even approaching an information shortage, but actually we have an information deluge. And so what our challenge is now is about filtering and sorting problems. Yeah, it's the filtering and sorting issues are what it's about. It's not about information availability. We have more than enough information to go around, but it's just about how do you make sense of this deluge. So the second brain isn't just about collecting data, but it's about filtering and sorting and making it useful. So, what's the second brain anyway? Well, here's a great question. How many of you, hands up, you don't be embarrassed, but how many of you have ever forgotten why you walked into a room? I mean, literally all of us, right? So that's just an admission, here and now, why we all need a second brain. Because our brains, and we stopped evolving apparently like 40 or 50,000 years ago. So we stopped physically evolving once we had evolved to perfectly run fast and throw rocks at moving animals. Apparently that's as far as our evolution on a physical plane got to. But our brains and the worlds that they now inhabit are a million times more complex than running fast and throwing rocks and moving animals. So what we really need to appreciate and to own up to and to embrace is the fact that our brains are fantastic at creating this sense of existence and being and recreating what we're seeing all around us in this ongoing cinematic image in our minds. But going back to the fact that we all walk into rooms and not have any fucking idea why we walked into those rooms in the first place, it says a lot about our brains' appropriateness at storing and archiving and collecting and organizing and filtering and sorting information, which is what the second brain thing is all about. So you need to think of your second brain as your personal assistant, but one that never sleeps and never forgets anything. These are our second brains. So, and Andy's already spoken upstairs about the fact that his second brain are lots of handwritten lists and notes.
I'm up to the monks at the moment.
You're up to the monks? Exactly. Andy's at monk level data organization, and he even dipped his toe in Excel, apparently, some time ago. But that's okay. There's nothing wrong. We embrace newbies. It's all good. So paper notebooks, Andy, are great until you lose them, or they catch on fire, or whatever happens. So digital notes, they offer a number of benefits. Searchability being one, backups another, and there's also a much greater chance of filtering and sorting and making all the knowledge useful. So this is the absolute focus of this. It's about making our knowledge useful. So tools like Notion, they let you not just store stuff in lists, but they also connect the parts of your knowledge in ways that our wet brains might be absolutely terrible at. Yeah, so this is, again, it's about delegating a lot of the 21st century information that we are deluged with into a place that is much better now than our minds are at organizing it all. So another AI character here, there he is. Yeah, and the question here is, another admission, hands up, has anybody ever added something to a to-do list that you've already done just to check it off? I mean, literally, it's just comical, isn't it? I'm just Andy, multiple times on an Excel sheet, no, on a paper list that you've written and then you ticked it off, even though it was done weeks ago. You're like, well, I did that. I'll give myself credit today on this one as well.
I'll do it to get started. It's brilliant. Genuinely, like, once you've ticked two things, even if you didn't before, I have to write them down, tick them off, and they go, great, two things, and then I can do more.
Right.
It's worthwhile.
That's a tip. I hope you're going to get to that in your presentation. Right. So traditional to-do lists, so this is a guy who's just ticking off the fact that he woke up. Yeah, this is kind of a weak joke, but anyway. So the traditional to-do lists, they feel good. They feel good to tick, but they don't always work. And this is where we have to take a leap of faith that something like Notion, other platforms are available, will let us build a system rather than just a pile of unchecked boxes. So we'd have to move beyond this idea of tasks to do, I'm going to check off those tasks. It's more about creating a system for us to be more productive with our second brains. So here we go. The secret to productivity. Focus on doing the right thing rather than doing more. Focus on what matters. I don't think I can better that with any more words, but this is really the secret here. Focusing on what matters. So I'm going to go through, there are 3 steps, because we like things to come in threes like this. And step number 1 is to capture everything. Back to the fact that our brains aren't really appropriate filing cabinets. But the idea is to find a way of inputting everything, and this is a huge big step. Actually, it should potentially be much easier. And some of the examples we heard in Devotee's Corner upstairs are great because they feel like they're fun. Often, I mean, they're all important, but it felt like some of them were just really simple solutions to problems of storing maybe a lot of information, but in a very simple way. And these are entry points, in fact, into being able to use the platform effectively. So, step 2 is to sorry, I've lost my the slide where I said I couldn't improve on that. Could have improved on it. Actually, could have done, exactly. So if you throw everything into a bucket, it's going to look like the room on the left. So the idea is to, I'm sharing my Wi-Fi with Simon, is that right?
Oh, it's fine, don't worry, I'm done.
Okay.
That's Apple, it's not me.
Yeah, okay. Sorry. So, throwing everything into a bucket, you're never going to find it, right? And the idea here is that no tasks exist in isolation, but all tasks actually are part of a project or another. So the idea is that when you have a task, you want to tag it or label it or group it, and it makes your future life much easier. And there was a really good short interview I listened to a couple of days ago about somebody saying that he focuses his entire life on making life easier for his future self. Yeah, which is actually quite an interesting way of looking at it. So his future self is constantly thanking his past self for all these little gifts that his past self has sent to the future to make his life easier. It's kind of an interesting way of considering. But the idea is that by tagging all your stuff, by labeling, you're making life easier for your future self. So folders are really an old-fashioned way of looking at the way that we hold information. It's more about thinking about smart sorting and using those tags and using the way that you're classifying your tasks into becoming a system. So the room on the right, clearly that's where we all want to be living. The room on the left is actually my room. It's not really my room. I do clean up. And then step number 3 is coming to the conclusion that our second brains aren't just some sort of junk drawer. Yeah, they have to be living systems. And a to-do list or any sort of system which is meant to be managing your work and your projects is useless if you never visit it. Yeah, that's another admission we've got to admit to ourselves that, okay, I've created all this great project plans and then I don't look for it, I don't look at it again until I've finished the project, then what was the bloody point? So this idea is, of step 3, is you've really got to set up time to review what's in there, right? Otherwise it becomes some sort of digital hoarding. So daily check-ins, weekly check-ins, monthly check-ins, reflections, deadline reminders. The idea is that you need to have some sort of triggers to invite yourself to go in and review the system that you're managing your projects and tasks in. So if you use something like Notion's filters and automation to keep tasks visible when you need them, and once you can gain the trust in the system, then it will start to work for you. Another thing, how to stick with it, and we're going to touch on how we did with the habit forming stuff. Actually, what did I do? I jumped forward straight into my presentation. We're going to go back into Notion News in just a moment, and then Merv and Simon. But the important thing as well is to make it something attractive for you to go in and do. So it's about making it fun for yourself, and we'll go back to habits and how we form habits. But gamifying it, having streaks of the number of days, you can create notifications which oblige you to go in and do a review, and then, hey, I've for 10 days or for 2 weeks or a month or 3 months, I have a 3-month streak of actually staying on top of my projects and tasks because I'm going in and reviewing them. So it's about creating that as an overview, as a meta part of the system. Right, so, yeah, the idea here is to make your second brain work for you, not the other way around. And using the right tools, you set up a system, learn to trust it, try to get everything dumped into it, organize it well, and then go back and constantly review. And suddenly we have evolved our to-do lists into systems. And luckily, Merv and Simon are here to give us very hands-on, real-life examples of how they do this with Notion. But I feel like the idea is that by employing this second brain to take a lot of the 21st century stuff, it frees up our minds to enjoy the things that really matter. Like meditation, to get over all the stress that modern life is offering us. Just like that. Right.